Well, hello, I'm Coach Rosa Montanero, and we are going to talk about writing an applicant tracking system friendly resume today. And we're going to go over a number of things, one of which will be what is an applicant tracking system? What are some best practices when you're using an applicant tracking system resume and writing one? And then I'm going to guide you step by step in the areas of your resume and how to write those out. I'll show you a quick demo of an applicant tracking system simulator, and then we'll have some quick resources for you. And then hopefully you'll be on your way to writing that ATS friendly resume. So let's start off with what is an applicant tracking system. And an applicant tracking system is known as an ATS. It's software that is utilized by recruiters and HR professionals and organizations. 75% of organizations use a form of an applicant tracking system. As many as 90% can be using them probably when we're through this whole new normal. And what it does is it sources resumes. So when you're getting 200 to 500 resumes for a job, a person can't look at them all individually anymore. So they put them into this database and it sources them based on keyword matching. How well did you do at matching the job that they posted to your resume? And then those individuals get moved forward and are actually seen by the person sourcing the resumes. And we know about 25% of the resumes actually get seen. So what I want to do is help you understand how to write this resume, how to get it seen, and how to get that phone call. All right, well, let's talk about some quick guidelines when it comes to writing a resume, because they have changed. Resumes have changed a lot in the last decade. It's important that you stay with the change. And so I'm going to give you some quick tips. What I'm telling you about in this particular workshop when it comes to writing resumes is specifically assuming they're going into an applicant tracking system. I would think that's a safe assumption, even if you find it on LinkedIn, even if it's on Indeed, those are still using an ATS simulator effect. They're sourcing, they're matching, they're making recommendations based on it, they're ranking. So you want to make sure that you're doing what's the latest and greatest practices when it comes to addressing technology and how it relates to your resume. So we want to get rid of the word objective on your resume as a heading. You don't really need that. These are just general guidelines. It sort of dates you now. People don't really put objectives on resumes, just like they don't put references available upon requests on resumes anymore. That again will date you. Resumes are spoken in the first person, but we don't use I, me, or my in a resume. And so you don't really start those sentences off with I. You start them off with an action word like, progressively or spearheaded or coordinated. That's how we start it. In your head, you could say I, but drop it from the words. You want to remember that even though a machine looks at it first, a person's only spending 10 to 15 seconds looking at it. And we want to get rid of all that extra, filler words. We want things that grab their attention so they want to call you. That's how you know your resume is working. Now I'm going to show you a simple format. I want it to be consistent. ATS systems like simple. They don't need anything fancy, no boxes, nothing like that. And always, always, always have someone proofread your resume. Usually you don't see your own errors, but someone else will find them. So make sure you share this with someone who's a good proofreader. Now, an applicant tracking system prefers the chronological format. So I'm going to show you a chronological format as opposed to any other format. I want you to stick to this. It's going to serve you better overall because it's cut and dry. It's very direct. It's usually not the prettiest resume, but an ATS system will love it and you'll get seen. And then when you go in for the interview, you can give them another looking resume if you'd really like to. Now, if you're in one of those creative worlds like graphic design, there are different rules for you, but you're still, if they use an applicant tracking system, you still need a version that's friendly. And for an applicant tracking system, you want to strive for about 1,000 words. Now, I'll show you how the simulator works, but I will say they do give you better rankings when you have more words. And so this is a 2-page resume, and that is about 1,000 words. Sometimes I'll show you an example of a 1-page resume, but that's just for demonstration purposes. I don't want you to feel like you have to keep your resume to one page. You do not have to do that. That's old school. Remember, for applicant tracking systems, we're not doing tables or boxes. ATS doesn't read that. Your font should be between 10 and 12, nothing fancy, very basic fonts. The serif fonts are what work well. They read letters differently, so it's going to mess up your resume. I'm sorry, don't use serif fonts. I said that backwards. Put my glasses on, it'll be easier. You want to use the standard fonts like Arial, Georgia, Veranda, Calibria, those ones. And then don't use your headers and your footers because the ATS system doesn't read that section. And if you're going to do bullets, do the default bullet, nothing fancy. It does not go well with ATS. So what I want you to do is don't use those pre-designed templates that they do in Word. Don't do those, because if you do, it's going to discombobulate when you try to copy and paste it or upload it into an ATS. Just go plain Word document. You can pretty up format later. If you're filling an online application, the better you complete it, the higher your ranking. So try to go for 100%. Always save a master resume in a Word document so that it is not getting discombobulated when you transfer it. Now you can certainly save as the PDF, but you want to make sure that where you're uploading it is PDF friendly. You're always going to customize the keywords, and I'll show you more about that. And whenever you can, upload versus cutting and pasting into an applicant tracking system. There's a couple of things that I will share with you too. When you do a slash, it almost looks like a URL to an applicant tracking system. Get in the habit of having a space if you're going to do a slash, then a space, so that it knows it's not part of a URL. And also that pipe, the straight line pipe, that could be something that people use too in titles, not necessarily throughout their entire resume. The top 30 of your resume is what gets seen the most. So that's where your summary is going to go. So what we're going to do is we're looking at the basic components of your resume. We're going to give you some examples, and I'll show you an ATS. So I really am going to keep this very simple. I want you to think simplicity, so buckets. You need your summary at the top, work history second, usually education at the bottom. Sometimes you don't need the education at the bottom. You might move it up before work history. It depends on when you graduated. Depends on if they're expecting that degree from you. But if you have 10 years of work experience under your belt, you probably don't lead with education, but it does depend on your industry. Additional headings would go after all of that. Now we're going to jump in with a summary. So the summary is simple. It's your big picture. It's your highlights. And it's going to explain to someone where you fit within the organization. I have a very simple formula. You don't have to use my formula. It's just one that I find helps things flow along. So a descriptor could be, professional customer service representative. So that's my job title. With over, never say more than 10 years, by the way. So I might say over 5 years experience within, the healthcare industry. So you're just filling in the blanks. If you say over 10 years, you could be overqualified for the job. You could be overpaid for the job. If it's a job you want, try to keep it dating yourself less than 10 years. You're going to show history on the resume, but you don't necessarily show dates. Once we exceed, those early 2000s, once you start going back 10, 15 years, then you stop listing the dates. But up until the last 10 years, you definitely want to show some dates. But I wouldn't say I have 30 years experience in something because that dates us. And I'd rather say over 10. Now, if we continue this summary, we have recognized for a character trait about yourself. Maybe you're meticulous, maybe you're detailed, maybe you're creative. And then a competency about yourself. This is what you've learned to do well. So it could be recognized, we said we were customer service, so recognized for detail, record keeping with international clients or something like that. So now we know this person has a sense of competency. And that would be working with international people, keeping records, those kind of things. It's really nice sometimes to add in within an industry. So I threw in the healthcare industry. And that gives someone a general idea where you fit within the company. Now I like the qualified to transition statement because that also shows how you could switch gears a little bit. Maybe you're coming out of one industry, you're going into another, it explains nicely why you'd fit into that. So if this person's customer service and they worked within the, the healthcare industry, maybe they want to transition into the medical device, or industry, or something like that, or maybe they're transitioning into mobile technology because they had a lot of experience with communication, something like that, or the technology itself. Then it would make sense to the person reading it. So what we're doing is we're showing where you have been, where you're going, and how it fits to the company, the reader, the person looking at it. This is like the forest. You're giving us the big picture. This addresses the job very well. We have to match this to the job. Very, very important. So you get the job description and you start writing the resume based on that. Now you're going to go into some bullets. I'm going to say maybe 5. You could go as many as 7. This is an applicant tracking system. It's not limited to a page and a quarter or 2 pages and a quarter. It's kind of, you got a little bit more leeway there. So you're going to pick 5 to 7 bullets of what exactly matches that job that you're interested in. They start off with action statements. They show scope of what you've done. They're a little more big picture, grab my attention, and give me some nice accomplishment statements. And these are highlights, right? Boom, big ones. So if you're saying that you work within the healthcare industry and now you're transitioning to something like mobile technology, you might say in here how you've attended or facilitated even workshops on utilizing technology within the organization, ranging from, let's say, newbies, people who have never been exposed to it, all the way to seasoned people that were tech savvy. So now I see a scope of what you've done. Maybe you've worked with as many as 200 clients a day, or you work with them on the phone as well as in group settings. Those are things you'd put in those highlights, something that shows your experience, your competency to do this job. And then we have technology skills. I want you to add those to the top. Technology is big, big, very important. I need to know you know how to use technology. So make sure you add it in. Usually right after the summary statement is a great spot for it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to show you an example. So I kind of walked you through the template, but here's one how we would do it in real life. You have your job description. We have a job description that says customer service representative, 2 years experience within a busy call center, a direct call center, customer service tracking software, associates preferred, communication skills, sales support, bilingual plus, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Excel. Not all mandatory, but some of them are a plus. Some of them might be higher on the level. What you want to do is you want to imagine that as you are doing this, that you check off everything you've addressed and you talk about it in your summary. So under that job description, I'm going to look at, did I say customer service representative? Did I say over 2 years experience? Did I say customer service tracking software? So now more than ever, because the person is not the one looking at this first, you have to get a very tight match to the words that are used in the job description and weave those into your resume. So I said this is big picture. I kind of followed the format I showed you. Professional customer service representative with over 2 years experience within a busy call center. We've checked off a few things right now. Boom, we're doing good. Recognized for going above and beyond and providing outstanding service for customers within a retail and healthcare industry. So now I'm showing you what I've done, and I'm fully qualified to provide sales support and customer service within an inbound call center. So now I'm telling you, I'm making a switch. So I'm taking the question out of your head. Why are you applying here? Because you're switching gears. Now we got to address as much as we can here in this summary so that you do want to call me when you look at this. So one of the things you wanted was multitasking. And I'm going to write multitasking ability. I'm going to go exactly how you said it. Having trained over 20 new hires on best practices while performing daily work requirements. Now, you might say the first time, multitasking ability, having trained new hires on best practices. And then you go back and you make it qualified and quantified and say, how can I show this? How many people have I trained? What was the result of it? What was the big deal about it? And then we can develop it from there. They want customer service tracking software. Now, when I originally wrote this resume years ago, I didn't say it that way. I said trained in software used for customer service tracking purposes. The HR person knew what that meant, but the computer did not. So we had to restructure the sentence. Proficient in company-specific customer service tracking software, and then can I show a result that hosts a database of 1,000 customers. So always show some results so people can see you've done your homework. Now we have, this one used to say, I had excellent communicator, which is what I have on here, with an 80% success rating of resolving customer complaints on the phone and in person. But here's what, it gets pushed back on me with the ATS. I have to change that to excellent communication skills with an 80% success rate. And that will actually boost my ranking in the applicant tracking system. Now, you might not know off the top of your head how you did as far as quotas go. So you have to kind of dial back on it. You'll say, excellent communicator at resolving customer complaints. And then we go back and say, can I think of a project I worked on where I did really, really well? And well, how did I do that? Well, there were 10 people a day. 8 of them were keeping their subscription. I did 80% success. You can, guesstimate like that, as long as you could speak to it, and you could speak to it in a very competent manner. And then they want sales ability. So if we're exceeding sales goals, can you show how long you've exceeded sales goals? Sure. For 6 consecutive months, if I look at all my performance evaluations. And that's kind of how we get started on this summary. I'm going to say the other thing to pay attention to is when it says things like Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Office, you may have to put the words together so that the ATS recognizes it. It's common that it won't recognize it because it didn't see them together. So that's one of the benefits of running it through an applicant tracking system. Now we've got work history that's next. It's a simple format. Where did you work? What were the dates? What was your job title? Give me a positioning statement. That's what were you hired to do? And then give us 3 to 5 action bullets that are more accomplishment based so that we can see what you did. And this supports the summary. What you did in the work history supports the summary. So I have it broken out into action results, the purpose, I call it the art of writing a bullet, an accomplishment statement. You have an action, you have a result, and then the purpose of it. And if you put those 3 elements into the sentence, you will have something that makes a lot more sense and a little more captivating to the reader. And so crafting these, you stick with, what was my action? My action was I resolved customer complaints or something. Oh, yeah, that's what the part of it was. And it could be the result was resolved customer complaints. The purpose could have been resolved customers, made customers happy. It depends on what you're saying here, who you're talking to. So the first thing is we are saying our actions were exceeding sales goals, right? But what do you do? We automated, what we actually did is we were able to, the result, was that we were able to increase sales by 20%. And the purpose was the customers were returning. We kept those customers, right? Maybe something else we did. We developed a database. What was the result? It automated something for staff. What was the benefit, the purpose? It reduced common errors. And I can see in my PowerPoint I have some color issues. It didn't transfer over. But so reducing common errors would have been in purple. And so I tried to color code some of these. Now this is a good example of what happens when you play around with formatting in different platforms. Colors change. Don't use color in an ATS resume anyway. But things change and you'll manipulate and you don't realize it. And that's why it's really, really important to just keep it simple. Okay, so this is just an example of how you would write those bullet statements. Now I'm going to give you an example of the work history. We have company name, we have city, state, if possible, month and year to month and year. That will get you a lot further. The ATS likes that. We have a job title. Pick a title that they would recognize. If no one ever uses the title they used at your organization, then pick a different title. And you could put that pipe in there and show multiple titles. And then the positioning statement is, what were you hired to do? If anyone was hired today, what would they be expected to do? And you just write that out. And then there's 3 to 5 bullets on what you did above and beyond. So if we look at this example here, we worked in a retail store. That was the company name, Rochester. We have our dates. My title was cosmetic counter customer advisor. And maybe I change it to pipe sales associate. And then they can see that that goes by different titles. It crosses over. What was I hired to do? That positioning statement assigned to a specific product line, providing customer service, advice, and sales for retail customers. That's a simple sentence of what I was hired to do. You weave in some of those keywords in there too, as well. Now we've got some bullets. What did you do above and beyond? Well, awarded Employee of the Month for outstanding customer service while meeting and exceeding sales quotas. Look at your performance evaluations. Look at what the job description's asking you. Look at what you said you could do in the summary. You could show it here. Met with over 40 customers daily to assist with buying choices and suggested appropriate items. Consistently met and exceeded sales goals by 20% by providing preferred customers with personalized service. So we have all these things we could say we did. So what you want to do is you want to support the summary, use action, results statements, and if you start with tasks, that's okay, but turn them into accomplishments later. There's a cool website that's called ONET Online. Very useful. I have it in here for you. A good place to look at what job titles are, what they look like. You look up a certain type of, let's see if I could show you real quick. You look up a certain type of industry, and then, let me see. And then what it will do is it'll give you some ideas on what people do in those jobs. So if we said customer service, and I go to customer service representative. Now what's cool is up here, I have interact with customers to provide information in response to inquiries about products and services, handle and resolve complaints. That is what we would call positioning statement right there. That positioning statement is saying to us, to the person, or to you, some of the things that you could say that you've done, right? So, oops, let me fix that. Oop. You know what? This is the funny thing about technology, guys. It's just what it is, right? We all make mistakes on it, and you just got to keep pushing through. So I'm looking for that page I just had for you. I don't know what happened. Oh, there it is. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me. All right. So what we have is this, what we would call under the summary report. We have a job title, but we have samples of other job titles. Above it, we have a positioning statement. Under tasks, we have things that that person was hired to do. Confer with customers by phone or in person. Check to ensure appropriate changes were made to resolve problems. Keep records of customer interactions. Resolve customer service billing complaints. If you just look at each one of those bullets and just get an idea of what it's saying, you could come up with bullets for your resume. So this is a really great tool. Okay, so we're going back to our PowerPoint. And let's look at the next piece. So that we're putting, 3 to 5 bullets under each job of what you did. And then you do the job before that, and then the job before that. And we stop dating it when we get to about 10 to 15 years. So what you want to do is you're going to say, most recent jobs with dates, right? And if you were at the same company for 30 years, you could just put the dates on the same line as the job titles. And then you just say previous related experience, and you list the rest, and you don't date it. It could be that simple. It works. It really does work. Next segment on your resume is going to be your education. Your education typically would be highest degree first, name of school, city, state, degree you obtained, and then we do the same thing. We just name of school, city, state. Highest degree always goes first. And if it's something that's not relevant to what you did, but it's a degree, it still counts. If it's something like you got your real estate license, but you're not in real estate anymore, that's up to you. So we have this person as their associate's degree first, the school they went to, city, state. We drop dates when it gets to be about 5 years old. We don't need to keep dates on there. And you can certainly add your certifications. You could change this title to education/professional development, certifications, training, whatever you want to call the heading, that's fine. We have Dale Carnegie in there because This is something this person did above and beyond, and they're in customer service, so it makes sense. Now we do have additional headings, and additional headings are volunteering, community involvement, affiliations, associations. We're following the same format like we did with education. Name of organization, how you served, city, state, that sort of thing. So I'll follow the same format. Now we're going to put it all together. So we just went through it, and I went through it quickly because we're recording it. Nobody's asking me questions. But you have your summary at the top. We have what we're showing you, about as far as let me show you with my little spotlight. There we go. So our spotlight. So here's our summary at the top. We followed our format. We did the bullets. We kept in them. We added the Microsoft Office and Word, by the way. We have the work history, just like how we showed you, chronological format. We have different dates. We tried to break it up. Then we go down to education, and we just said education/certification. And that's how we did that. So it all comes together rather nicely. And this one's going to play really well with an applicant tracking system, because what's going to happen with an applicant tracking system is it tends to migrate. And because it migrates, information populates throughout the application process in the database. And if you reformat, just putting your dates on the opposite side, just trying to get a little creative with that, information is going to go in the wrong spot, and you're not going to have the ability to fix that if you're not aware of it, or if you see it, it's going to take twice as long to do. So I want you to follow a nice, simple format like this. The other thing I'm going to show you about this resume at the top, I have over 2 years experience for inbound calls. One of the reasons I did that is when I put this through an applicant tracking system, even though I had more than 2 years, I had 5 years, it said I didn't have 2. And for that particular system, didn't realize 2 was more than 5. But I think we're going to get Google smart on these ATS systems. And at some point, they're going to know 2 is more than 5. And there are so many different types of applicant tracking systems. You'd be amazed. So there's a lot. So don't just think there's only one way. The organizations, that's a business in itself, and they sell these things and these programs, and they can be quite inexpensive and freeware, all the way to the big ones that companies use, and they're top notch and they're robust, and they offer letters to the potential employer, and they onboard, and they do a lot of functions. Really great, cool programs. All right, I'm going to take you now to some simulators and show you how that works. And let's go back to Google. All right, first one I'm going to show you is a free one. This is called CV Scan. CV Scan is kind of cool. And what you're doing is you are uploading your resume where it says CV here. A CV is another word for a resume. And then the job description goes on this side. Very important that we match them. Very, very important. So now if you want to demo it, I'm just going to show it to you. Now what happens is after you put your resume on one side and you put your job description on the other side, you get a match right here, 33% match. You need an 80% match. You have to get an 80% match to even be seen. Very, very important. So what you do is you're looking, it's telling you where you could make improvements. And so it's showing you what you're missing. You're missing digital campaigns, you're missing channel marketing, you're missing business to business marketing manager. Now we go in through our resume and we say, where can I add that? There's probably lots of opportunity to add these things because you didn't realize you didn't have it. But now when you start getting ideas, it's just a matter of weaving those words into your resume appropriately, keeping those accomplishments in place, and probably even using them as some of the accomplishments. I look at it as a puzzle. It helps me get a really good idea, where does this fit? And how do I change the structure of the sentence until we get that to an 80% or better rating? So that's called cvscan.uk. It's very useful. And this one, I use this a lot, and because it's free. But what I also do is once I get this to an 80% approval rating, Then I switch over to JobScan. I do love JobScan, but JobScan gives you 5 free scans a month, and they'll try to upsell you. Don't upsell. Once you create an account with JobScan, you accumulate those 5 every month, and you could share a link with people, and they'll give you free scans every time they create an account. I have over 100 free scans right now, because I share my links so often with people, and they get 10 free scans and I get 10 free scans. So it's pretty cool, but I like it because it's a much deeper report. So hit try sample resume. Same thing, your resume goes on one side, job description goes on the other, and then it cross-reference gives us a match. We look at this match, it gives us a report. And we can go to any one of these to say, what exactly does that mean? And it'll tell you what you're missing. It also does predictive skills. This is always updating. JobScan's always updating. So the predictive skills are things that most people would have on their resume. Here's how I said the word count here. So this one's a little over with 1063. It's also telling you to avoid certain words. This keeps up to date. It's pretty cool. And then when you go a little further down, it'll tell us the words we're actually missing. Customer experience, iPhone, tells you what's a predictive skill, multi-platform, operational analysis. That means it's used to seeing that on people's resumes. This has the soft skills as well. We're coming down to that. So this is a little more challenging for me. Like rather than saying passionate, I have to say with a passion for. So it just changes how you say something. Strategic thinking rather than strategic thinker. Like how would I normally say it? I probably have to change the lingo a little bit. Other keywords that we could add in there. Recommendations, it'll give you some job recommendations. Pretty cool site. Play with this. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your resume, you're going to look at the keywords, you're going to cross-reference it, you're going to run it through CV scan until you get that match. When you start to get a better match, then you run it through JobScan, see how you like it. Then you apply for the job. I'm probably going fast, right? That I know. So what I'm going to do, let's go here. This is anything about glasses, right? You can see everything I see in my glasses. But I can't see what I'm reading if I don't have them on. So I'm going to show you an example of how I customized a resume using JobScan and CV scan. I took the job description, right, for Tony Technology, and I had already helped Tony with his resume. So Tony and I worked on the resume when they were in college, and then Tony was applying for a job. And I thought I customized it pretty well until I ran through CV scan and JobScan, and I got a 63. Didn't even come close to 80, and I know what I'm doing. And it dinged me on a lot of these little different things, like not using plural for engineers. It wanted engineers. I only had engineer. I had to go in and find a place to plural engineer. So it's very tricky how it works. Oops, sorry, wrong way. And the other thing we had to do is, I'm sharing my screen, aren't I? I hope I'm sharing my screen with you. Let me check, because it's not saying I'm sharing my screen. So we're just going to, in front of everybody, double check that. Because I get a little worried that if I'm not sharing my screen with you, which I wasn't, we're going to rewind a little bit. This is funny. And I have a sense of humor, don't you? Okay. There we go. So what we're going to show you here is current slide. What we're doing here is I looked at the job description. I highlighted, and then I ran my resume, customized my resume. So Tony Technology had a resume worked on when he was in college, applied for a job, got the job. Then he needed another job. And I told him to try to match it through technology. It wasn't working. He wasn't getting calls. We went through this, ran it through an ATS, got it to 96, started getting calls. People start getting calls right away. Usually they'll see a difference. Now, I hadn't done this in a pandemic, mind you that. But prior to that, common that people would say, oh, I've got 4 phone calls and I haven't had 4 phone calls at all since I started this whole thing, and I got 4 in the last week. I hear that often. ATS does make a difference. So as I mentioned earlier, there's engineers were plural. I had software engineer peer. I actually had to change over 3 years to over 2 years. Oh no, that was the other resume. 3 years to match this one because it said I didn't have 3 years. I added engineers in my work experience so that I could figure out where to have those words. I didn't know what middleware was, so I had to make sure we were using it properly. We added in like design and build and those kind of things to get the higher ranking. We added in the healthcare and government, industries. It said I didn't have the word analyze as a predictive skill, so I threw that in there. And it wanted accomplishments. Very often, an applicant tracking system wants to see results. And it said I didn't have 3 accomplishments. And because of that, I went through and I was able to, like, under some of these say, under the job description for web development, over 5,000 alumni engineers. Got my engineers, plural, got my accomplishment. Development of department website, which is the first bullet. Engagement increased by. I just had to ask myself, what was the result? What was the functionality of the website? How did I improve it? By what percentage? Can I guesstimate that? What percentage of people were satisfied with what I did? So went in and added some of those results, and it, boom, boosted us right up. The harder part was it wanted a government security clearance. I mean, adding the technology wasn't hard because the person did it. It just happened to get overlooked in different spots. But then I just added eligible for government security clearance and willing to relocate, because since that was dinging me for it, I just thought I'd add it in. And if someone called and asked me why I put that in a resume, I'd say, because I've been using these applicant tracking systems, and I understand you got to get it to 80% or better, and that silly thing would not do it for me. And when I put it in there, boom, it did. And it must have worked, thank goodness, because you called me. I'm so excited to talk to you. And they know the flaw of their system, but you want to be able to address it. So this is an example of how I used it and how it really did work really, really well. Some of the resources I mentioned for you, ONET Online, great resource for helping you identify the bullets that might go on your resume, how to structure those sentences. They're written by computers, so don't copy the way they wrote it, but it'll give you some ideas of job titles and positioning statements and things like that. The websites I used for simulators, jobscan.co, cvscan.uk, and you'll have a copy of all this. And then just to reiterate what I said, you're going to create your resume in a Word document. You're going to find a job description that you want. You're going to identify the keywords. You're going to weave them into your resume, and then you're going to check that out in JobScan or CVScan, preferably the one that's free, until you get that 80% match or better, and that's when it's ready to be submitted. I hope this was helpful. I thank you for spending the time with me. And I'd love to stay connected. I have my LinkedIn address for you. I'm always here to stay connected with you. And I am going to be available Tuesday after we show this at noon on the same platform to answer some questions you have. So from 12 to 12:30, I'll be available to answer some questions. Take care.